Good morning, everybody. It is 11 a.m. and this is On the Farm Wednesday here with Middleton Places plugged into history. Welcome this morning, this rainy, thundery morning. We are here in the Outdoor Education Center in the Stableyards for this On the Farm Wednesday, and we are learning today about maintaining the plantation even when I didn't even know that. Wow, I didn't even know this shed had light. Look at that. We're learning all sorts of things today. This shed is electrified. Very cool. Our OEC is electrified. We are learning today about how the tasks of the plantation continue even when the family is away. So yesterday you learned a little bit about Governor Henry Middleton and his wife Mary Helen Herring and how they were in Russia for 10 years. But even though the family was in Russia for that long, they were still keeping these plantations like Middleton Place, and there was still work to be done. So today we're going to hear from Jeff a little bit about how the plantations were maintained even when the family was away. And one of the tasks that we do here every spring is shearing sheep, and we often have in the first weekend of May a big sheep shearing festival, and you can see Hannah and Courtney and all of our amazing Stableyards folks out here shearing all in one great big day. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to have that day this year because of pandemic, but these ladies are faithfully continuing with shearing the sheep just like we do every single year. So we're going to learn a little bit about the tasks of the plantation today as we watch Courtney shear. All right, so I'm going to keep this camera down here while the truck rolls by. And then Jeff, if you want to take it away and talk a little bit about the tasks of the plantation in the 19th century.
Well, excellent. Well, good morning. Welcome. As Karen said, today we are shearing sheep. All right. Now, shearing sheep is probably one of the oldest things that civilized man has done. It dates back probably to the dawn time. Matter of fact, you could argue that sheep were arguably probably the first domesticated animals. Okay. Now, one of the big questions we get is, well, why do we shear a sheep? Well, there's the big one that we all know about. Okay. We want the fleece. We want the wool. Okay. So some of it is so as we can produce things. But there's other reasons why they're shearing the sheep as well. One is for hygiene purposes. If you'll notice in the fleece here, and I'll give you a little closer look at it earlier, you can see there's a lot of dirt in here. There's also, unfortunately, we get a little bit of feces and all kinds of other yucky stuff in it. So we want to take this off so we can keep the animal as healthy as possible when we do this. Another reason for shearing the sheep is also, well, it does help regulate their body temperature a little bit, not only in the winter, but in the summer, okay? And then lastly, well, shall we say aesthetic purposes, okay? Just to clean them up, make them look a little better with that. Now, if you'll notice here what Courtney's doing, and Courtney is probably our main shearer here at Middleton Place, what she's already done is she's kind of skirted around the legs, on the hind legs, and now what she's doing, as you'll see, she's getting ready to start, she kind of starts a line, okay? And what she's doing is she's going to follow that line all the way across, okay? And you see she's putting the shears in as far as she can, and what she's trying to be real careful doing, she does an excellent job of this, is not cutting the same fiber at the same time. That's what's called a shortcut. We want as long a fiber as possible so we can spin it. That gives us more wool. If we double cut the fleece, you get a shorter fiber and it's harder to spin it out. Now, if you'll notice the animal here, she's pretty calm, right? This is actually for shears and us doing this. Well, one, we take the utmost respect for these animals, the utmost care for these animals. We try to do this as quickly as possible so we don't provide any stress or anything. And we're also being very careful not to try to nick the skin. Now, the one thing about nicking the skin, okay, is that sheep have 2 layers of skin, basically. So if there is a nick, it's kind of like getting a razor cut, for the gentlemen or ladies who are shaving as well. So it's nothing real bad, so we just have to be careful. The spots you really have to be careful around, I know at least when I do it, is the legs, because there's like webbing. You want to watch the tail up around the head, all right? But you just try to keep real calm here. And it greatly helps when you have an animal like this. And by the way, which one is this?
We don't know her name, but it's Mud's sister.
Mud's sister, okay, that'll work. She is
Mud's
being
sister.
extremely calm with this. You do have some animals, they don't care for this, or they don't like certain parts of their body being touched, like maybe around the rear, or around the front, or around the head sometimes, and sometimes they will act up a little bit, okay? So she's got a good line. Now what she's doing is she's going into the stomach and basically cleaning it up, okay? Sometimes these are referred to as locks, and this is waste. This is not anything that we can really spin because it's not long enough. Also, you see, this is usually, it's pretty dirty as well with that. So this is just to clean her up, make her look a whole lot better. Okay. Now, what she's using, you probably noticed, is she's using what are called hand shears. Okay? We have basically two types. You have what is called a double bow. Okay? And basically what a double bow is, think of it as two separate blades and they've been joined together at the bottom. This is probably the most common shear. All right, this is probably the easiest to use as well. All right, you get a good spring from it. But you also have, this is actually a pretty antique pair. This is called a single bow. And you see, this is basically just one long blade. All right, it's all connected together. These don't spring as much. These were used mostly if you have really tough wool to cut through. All right, so you need a little more resistance, a little more action on it, a little more pressure on it. That's what these would be used for. But generally, you can do everything with that double bow. Is that what you kind of prefer, Courtney, I take it?
Mine that I own are single bow,
You own it? Really?
but they are short like this.
Okay. Yeah, and they can be, the blades can run long or cordings are short. A lot of it just depends upon the shearer, what you're most comfortable with. Also, sometimes where you're at on the animal. You know, I know sometimes getting up in the head, especially if you're doing let's say a ram that has horns, you got to be real. Sometimes the shorter are much easier to use with these. Right now, while they're doing this, okay, this is like one of those cooking shows. We're showing you the process, and here kind of comes the finished product. All right, we have Flat Arthur here. He has joined us in the middle of the fleece. Right, so this is actually the outside of the animal. Okay. Notice the fleece, we're trying to keep everything in one piece. You're going to have some gaps and holes because we are going around the legs, and sometimes the animal may kick and they may tear it or anything like that. So we have this, so this is the outside. Now the next thing we would do with this, are you guys getting ready to flip?
No, not
Oh, or just move it around? Okay, we'll come back to that. Is we want to go into this because as I said, that fleece is dirty. So what we're going to do is we're going to do sometimes what's referred to as skirting. Okay, you can see some of these double edges, and we would just pick some of this off. Sometimes we would cut it, all right? We'll also find, I found this earlier just going through this one, we pick up some burrs or gumballs now and then. For everyone, we do have, as we talked earlier, there's some of that matted feces and stuff that gets stuck in there that, again, we want to take it off. Not only the skirt, but take it off the animal to try to help out. Now what
Don't hang around with your poop in your hand.
Exactly. Now, the thing I always like was flip this. Let me get it so I don't tear it. And look at that underside. A lot cleaner than the other. Though you can see some of the darkness here. Some of this is just dirt working through, or in some cases, especially here at Middleton Place, when the sheep are out in pastures, we have all these oak trees. And these animals, well, we get itches from time to time. So what do? They go up to branches, sometimes they'll go up to the fence, they'll start scratching that itch. And you know, can't blame them, I do the same thing. But when they do it, they mat the wool down sometimes, and I'll be honest, it's like cutting steel wool at times. It just gets really fine. But that can all be washed out and everything. Oh, there's a little bit more poop. All right. This gives you an idea. So after the fleece is done, we lay this out, we skirt, we get all the edges off, try to get this cleaned up. Then this is going to be folded up. All right, we'd fold it up so we'd see the inside of the wool on that. And then here we ship most of this off. Okay, to get processed. We will keep some that I'll have people in the textile shop. They'll process some of this, but we'll roughly get about 50 to 60 pounds. Which when totally processed is going to be about 16 to 1700 yards of wool. for the ladies in the textile shop, that's a little too much for them to do, so we only save a couple pounds for them. A question?
Yes, one of our watchers from Canada, hey, thanks for watching from so far away, wants to know, was the wool for plantation use only or for export, trade, etc.? So
Okay,
we know that we have different numbers of flocks here at Middleton Place, so you want to tell us a little bit about that history?
So what it was actually used for, okay? According to the records we have, just to give you an idea of what's here, 1850, we have roughly 300 head of sheep here, and they produce about 600 pounds of wool that year, this year. 1860, we have 160 sheep here, and guess what? They produce 600 pounds of wool. All right, so one of the questions is, maybe not all of that 300 was sheared. Some of these may have been ewes or lambs or things like that. It's hard to say, but all of that was done. Oh, there we go. Our bonus chicken.
Bonus chickens. Here you go. Kylo and his ladies are hiding from the rain. Please pardon the interruption.
So-
Hi, handsome.
All the vast majority of this wool is being shipped out. Right? It is being sold. Right? Some may be kept here. At Middleton Place, I would say no, but other plantations, yes, they are providing clothing or cloth. They are making it on some. But here, we know, I would say probably almost 100% of it is being shipped off and being sent. All right. Now, if we go back to our shearers here real quick. All right. Notice she's getting on the neck here. All right. That seems to be a little tougher cut there than a lot of dirt. Yeah, as we talked earlier, where they're scratching, sometimes scratching that neck with a side or something like that. A lot of dirt, and it's like steel wool trying to cut sometimes.
We have another question. Do we have the names of the enslaved people who were responsible for shearing sheep or tending animals?
No, I do not. Well, I do have some names of some of them. We know that the cattle minders out here were Abram and Klaas during the antebellum period. We also know of Isaac and William. They were the plowmen. They not only plowed the fields, but they would have been working the mules out here, the 11 water buffalo that were here, also some of the horses. There's Jack and Abram that are also the coachmen, so they would be taking care in the 1860s, the 16 horses that were out here. In addition to that, though we don't have names, we do have enslaved people listed as working in the dairy and also just as animal minders. Now, as far as the shearing goes, here's the one thing about shearing. Anybody can do this. Anybody can do this. The problem is doing it well. This is the hard part, because if the fleece is ruined, you just lost all your profit. All right. So in many cases, you do have a specialized person coming in here. We don't know of any here at Middleton Place as far as anyone residing on this plantation, any enslaved people doing it. And judging from records I see of other things that were brought in to administer this place, to do things, I think there's a good chance they're probably bringing in a professional shearer to do this. Because, again, this is a specialized skill. All right? It's possible they may have had someone here do this as well, but it's probably specialized because, keep in mind, too, this is happening once a year. We're doing this primarily in the spring. Some people like to shear their animals before they lamb. Some like to do afterwards. We always try to do it in the spring, and I'll be honest, the main reason, it's cooler, and we kind of do it for us because it's not as hot out here to do it.
Jeff, we're getting ready to play.
Okay, what they're going to do is she is sheared up roughly to about maybe an inch or so past her spine. Okay, so what they've done is you'll notice they've rolled up the fleece, all right, underneath her. And what we're going to do is turn her over. You need a hand to grab this in.
And
We're
so
just going to flip her over really easy. We're not going to try to bother her or anything. Okay. We're just going to move her back on the blanket a little bit. There we go. Good enough? You okay? Yeah, okay. I'll hold here. She's going to turn sides. Okay. Courtney likes to. She's like me. I like facing the animal when I do this. Yeah. Some people. Some people do it from the back. Some do it inside. It just depends.
So, thank you, Dontavius. You're right. Those people's names absolutely do matter. We also had some women listed as poultry minders and such.
We had
too.
old Greta and old Kate were listed as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had another question. Is it possible they could have trained someone to be specialized in shearing instead of bringing in someone every year?
It's very possible that could have been done. I think a lot of you are looking at, keep in mind, this is a business. And this whole thing is running around on not only how efficiently you can run this place, what can I keep down on labor costs, or what's more important. And in the case of shearing the sheep, it may be cost efficient to train someone to do this and have them do it. However, it may be also more cost efficient to bring someone in that's a professional, because you're getting more fleece then. You're trying to get as much as you can.
Is it possible that that person that they were bringing in is an enslaved individual, maybe in town, or
it could be
something like that?
It could be.
Possibly.
It's very possible. One thing we see in a lot of the records here, for example, the 19th century, we do not have a blacksmith, an enslaved blacksmith, listed here at Middleton Place. However, we have many records where they're paying for a blacksmith to come in every 4 or 5 months, whatever, to do certain work. And again, it may just be because of the number of people you have. You may not have enough people to be able to do this. And sometimes it's more efficient for them to be able to bring someone in and do this.
Sure.
You know?
We did have another question about the wool. Was it shipped out of Charleston Harbor then, if it was being exported?
Yeah, I would say be shipped out. Now, we're not sure exactly where the wool is being sent. However, we know the hair that is being combed from the goats out here, the cashmere goats, we know that is actually being sent to France.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. Of course.
All right.
Now, talking about that shearer, okay? And I know the ladies, they probably don't, they don't want to hear this part. Hand shearer, the world record, okay, for shearing sheep by hand with a pair of shears, okay, was actually done in 1892. It was actually over in Australia, all right? This gentleman, I forget his name, he sheared 371 sheep in 7 hours and 40 minutes.
By hand.
Which is roughly, I think, close to about 30 to 35 sheep an hour. So you're probably looking at about every, I don't know, about 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, somewhere in there. Now, professional shearers today, all right, are using electric. And a professional shearer, on the average, can shear an animal in about 3 to 4 minutes. All right. The world record for electric shearers with one animal is 38 seconds. Okay. Now, the one thing with the blade shearing here, this is actually in the past, I don't know, maybe about 10 years, has actually had a little bit of a revival going on. I think someone has going that some people see this as a more humane way of doing it, which is very possible, the view on that. Some people see it as a tie-in to like organic farming, getting back to some of the old ways. And they've actually established championships, okay? And I was going to see if Courtney's interested. Scotland, June of 2022 is the next World Blade Shearing Competition. So,
Great, you have 2 years to train for it. You can do it.
But also in other parts of the world, still in Australia, in Europe, in South Africa, there are many registered blade shearers. They still do it this way. Some of it is because, well, some of these farms don't have electricity. They're trying to get someone in to do it, so they do it themselves.
Oh, baby girl.
Are you seeing stuff?
She's seen her friends.
I think one of our favorite experiences shearing the sheep out here is my colleague Bob Sherman. He was actually shearing for a school group. And they came in, and much like you see here, this is what they're watching, and Bob said he noticed all the school kids were just kind of like watching it, not saying anything. And then suddenly, the animal made a sound. And then he said the school kids all turned around and said, "She's alive! She's alive!" So I think we traumatized the whole 3rd grade class out here.
Oh my goodness.
What are you doing, Brody?
You don't need to come and watch.
Don Tavius, thank you. It is a tough job, and I know Courtney and Hannah are always concerned about nicking the sheep as well, but you can see she's being really gentle. She's doing a great job.
The important thing to do with this, really, especially for us, is we just take our time, all right? We're in no hurry. And also for us, we want the wool as much as we can. However, it's more important for us to get it off the animal, because we want to make sure that the animal, its health stays well. It's a little more comfortable out here. A fleece, like you saw over here that we were skirting. Hey, what's up, buddy? This weighs for, and by the way, these are Gulf Coast sheep. Right, this is a particular breed that we raise here. We're probably looking at about 3 to 5 pounds. For a whole fleece. For a whole fleece. So if you can imagine this coming off the animal, I know we all feel relieved sometimes when we get a haircut. Imagine taking like maybe up to 5 pounds off of you. It's got to feel better.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
I love that they're an audience here.
Now you notice we have 2 that have been shorn. Okay, you're next. You're going to be in there sometime. Of course, with the rain going on, this is the other thing you have to watch for. We do not want to do a wet fleece. Oh my goodness, that's pure murder.
Got it.
Time to do that. So again, if we just watch what she's doing, she's forming that line. Okay.
We have another question. Yes, thank you. It's a great question, Dontavius. Do you use all the fleece? We don't use all of it, but it gets used.
Yeah, it gets processed. What we do with comes back after it's been cleaned and spun into skeins, what we'll do with it is, one, we'll take a good portion of it. We will do dyeing programs out here, using not only indigo, but we'll do other natural dyes. Things that we can find here on the site, such as Spanish moss is really good. We use a variety of things. So we'll dye it, and then a lot of what we have will go to the textile shop, not only for displays. I myself, I have many caps. I have gloves made out of this stuff that we've used here, I've had ladies make. We also sell it over in our garden market.
I've actually purchased some to do some Native American crafting. I twine bags and wool, 100% naturally dyed, 100% wool is exactly the material that southeastern natives, particularly in the Creek tribe, would be using to twine. So that's what I use it for.
Yeah. So this is available. We try to use every bit that we get on this. Okay. As you see, we're going to have in here. We'll pick up some and show you. This is just some of the waste, the trash. This is what came off the belly. Again, you can see some of that dirt and feces and stuff's mixed up. Now, here's the other thing. I don't know if Courtney ever has this problem. I know I do after about my 2nd or 3rd sheep. There's lanolin in here, okay? Lanolin's what's drawn out to make lotions and things like that. But as you're shearing and you're messing with this, I know by using my 2nd or 3rd animal, I can't pick anything up. You start dropping shears because you just become coated in grease.
Yeah.
You know.
Here's your little bonus lamb cam, folks. I know you've been missing the lambs, so here you go. They're gigantic. They are running around in their little gang anymore.
Like I said, coming in.
Hi, little one.
As we started, I thought with this range, we may have some good
Jeff warned me that we may have a flock of visitors, and I said, that's fine. We need to give them a lamb cam anyway. It does make, lanolin is great. It makes your hands so soft. That's why it's used in lotions and ointments for sure. So, not so good for holding a pair of shears, but wonderful for the skin.
So Hannah, who is our Stableyards manager here, how many do we have in the flock right now?
We have 20 ewes and wethers combined, and then 9 lambs.
Okay, so 20 ewes and wethers and 9
What's
lambs.
a wether?
You want to do it?
A band of males, so they cannot breed.
Okay. Or we'll use the term castrated.
Castrated.
Say.
Castrated.
Okay. And then the ewes, as everyone knows, is a female. Right? And also keep in mind, and I think we mentioned this on our first sheep presentation, horns are not an indicator of sex. All right? Doesn't mean that it's a boy or girl. All right? Both sexes can have horns. If you want to know the sex, remember, look at the back, don't look at the front.
Right.
That's how you tell. All right?
Let me see if I can get the hour here.
Karen, this
Make sure that you all drop your questions in the comments. Mud Sister is doing so good.
You see, I think this gives you a really good example. All right, here she's got that line, but back here's the tail, and see how she's just cut around it. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
You're doing good.
Yeah. Now, after the animal is sheared, you see, we haven't cut all the way down to the skin. Okay, we've still got some fleece left on here. We do that because these animals, well, one, they can get sunburned out here.
No.
It is very possible after they're shorn.
Actually, I saw that the other day. Somebody had a sunburned head.
Yeah.
Who was that? I don't remember.
She has.
Sushi had a little
So
sunburned
what we want to
head.
try to do is try to keep them, in shade as much as we can, at least for those first couple days. Try to help them out a little bit because this is a little new experience. And I've always thought after we've shorn one, they do have that kind of look like, whoa, something's happened here.
You're naked.
Yeah. We used to have one animal out here, we called him Poster Boy. He was actually a Gulf Coast sheep. And he produced probably twice as much fleece as what you're seeing from the Gulf Coast. Oh, excuse me, he was a Cheviot, pardon me. And it was always so funny because when we sheared him, he literally was like skin and bone.
His head looked so big every year that he was sheared.
Yeah.
His head looked
and we always swore, you could tell after he got shorn, he would walk around and we'd always joke about that. It did look like he was holding his head down. I think he was kind of embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because he was a great looking animal. But once he got shorn, he was skin and bones out there.
It's like a human haircut. After a little bit grows out, after a couple weeks, you start looking normal again.
And that's the thing. This grows back pretty quick. It doesn't take long. Now, you see here, see where she's having a little bit of a problem because, see that dark? That's where they've been rubbing. All right, and it's just matting that stuff down. Okay.
So we shear once a year, and here at Middleton Place, we also lamb once a year.
Correct.
But is there a possibility to lamb or shear more than once a year?
Yeah, well, actually, yes. Okay. The gestation of these guys, Henry, if I'm correct, about 5 months?
Yeah.
So technically with Gulf Coast, you could lamb twice a year.
Whoa.
Right? We don't do it
Could you
just
imagine
because of the
18
animal.
lambs a year instead of 9? I'd go, oh, it's crazy.
Now, with the shearing, you can shear different, the animal here, okay, we have a full adult right here, right? Then we also have what are called yearlings. These are the younger ones. I often refer to them as kind of the teenagers in a sense. And then you have the lambs. You could shear each one of those. Lambs you could usually shear when they're about anywhere from, I want to say about 4 to 6 months. You can shear that because you can get lamb's wool. It's got a little different feel, a little different texture to it. You can also do a yearling. You're going to get different amounts. So you could mix it up. It's possible, but generally you do it all at once. Let's just get everything knocked out, and then you decide. There's been some years for us we never shear lambs. We don't do that. But there's been some years we have sheared yearlings, and there's been other years we have not. Simply because there's just not enough on them, and it's a little more difficult. We don't want to take the chance of cutting them or anything, so we'll just leave it be. And just wait till next year when this is growing out a whole lot more.
Cool. So it's a case-by-case basis for the younger ones. And
I love this.
not
If
at all
you
for
look
lambs.
here, if you hold my hand, you can see where she's separated off. It's slowly coming off. It's almost there. Also, you can tell she's still doing well, but you can tell, I think she's getting like, okay,
a little
all
restless.
right, come on now.
She's doing so good.
Yeah.
I know this is fascinating, everybody. Let me know if you have any questions. I think everybody's just enraptured, as they should be. This is an incredible skill that you all have here.
Well, we always kind of joke when we do the shearing out here for the public. We'll usually do somewhere between 15 to about 17 animals that day. We'll have about 4 or 5 sets of shearers out here. But we're always amazed. People will come and they'll watch and they'll spend the whole day with us. And not only will we do the shearing, we usually try to do the skirting in front of people so they can see that. We'll try to do some dyeing. We'll try to do some spinning. There are many programs throughout the United States. There's a lot of wool fairs where not only will they shear, but they'll try to make a garment like in one day sometimes. You know, that's something we haven't tackled yet. One day we'll give that a try, see what we can do.
Oh, we got some good questions coming in. Are the younger ones less calm when sheared? Yes. Yes. Hannah was explaining to me earlier before we went live that the yearlings are a little more skittish because they don't understand what's going on. If it's their first time being sheared, then they're not really sure what's happening. But Mud's sister has been through it a couple of times before.
Yes, so
Yeah.
she's about 7.
She's about 7, so she knows what's going on. My mom has a question. Courtney, my mom wants to know, is it really tiring on your hands?
My hands, not so much. My back and my knees, very.
Okay. Yeah, so hopefully...
That's what Bob and I say. This is a young man's game, a young person's game, because it does get to you. And just from my experience of doing this, I have probably cut myself more than I've actually than I've ever nicked an animal. I've caught myself many times. Matter of fact, I think when we did the last ones, I sliced open the finger, and everyone saw the blood, and they're like, "Oh no, the poor sheep!" And I was like, "No, it's me." And no one cared after that.
Aw.
Everyone was real worried about the animal, but once they found out it was me, it was okay.
So that's a good question, Kathleen, and I don't know if we can give you an exact answer on that, but on large plantations, how much time did it take to shear a sheep? I mean, that's going to depend on the skill of the shearer, right?
Skill of the shearer, the size of the flock. This would be, I'd say, well, we'll use this place as an example. 1860. I would say this is probably taking several days. We may be up into a week or two, possibly. And again, it's not only the skill of the shearer, how many do you have?
Right.
You know, that might be the other thing, that you may have people here that are shearing. You may bring some other people in to shear as well, just so you can get this done quicker.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
And for shearing one, I mean, that really just depends on who's got the blades in here.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah. This is a specialized skill that we're looking at that'll vary from person to person what they can do.
And so while the Middletons are in Russia, which is a little bit earlier than the 1850 and 1860 records that you're citing, you know, there are some sheep here, although not that many head.
Yeah,
right?
we're not exactly sure. I can tell you, after Governor Henry, the ambassador to Russia, after he passes away in 1846, what we notice in the plantation records, especially in the, shall we say, the animal husbandry and the agriculture, everything starts doubling. They start adding more and more and more. I think part of this is that Williams, who inherits this place, he is really not so much a planner as he is an agriculturalist. It's at this time in the mid-19th century, it's becoming more scientific. It's really, there's a lot of advances. So I think he's involved in that. And number two, unfortunately, Governor Henry leaves the family in a lot of debt.
Well, sure, it's expensive to be an ambassador. We learned that yesterday.
That lifestyle in Russia really took a toll, shall we say, on the finances. So we also think another reason we're seeing so many more animals and crops being done is trying to pay off these debts.
So enslaved people are still here. They're still maintaining the property even when Governor Henry and Mary Helen and their family are in Russia, but it's not necessarily the great business venture that it becomes in terms of like exporting and things like that, is what I'm hearing. This is still sort of that gentleman's planter.
Well, it's still pretty much a big business. Keep in mind, you probably have not only some of his sons are still here. Not everyone goes to Russia.
Right.
You also have overseers out here. And keep in mind, when we're talking Middleton Place, again, this is more of the family home. Right. This is more of the show place. There is work being done here, but it's very much on a small scale when we compare it, let's say, to plantations like the Holboni or the other plantations down on the Cumbie. Those are you have larger enslaved populations there, and you also have a lot more production going on.
Sure.
You're not finding this extravagant garden taking up 60 acres down on the Holboni and Cumbie, because that's being cultivated to produce that crop. So.
We have another question for you, Courtney. Where did you learn to shear sheep?
Right here.
Oh, really? All right. Courtney learned it on the job training, part of her work here at Middleton Place.
I should give a shout out to actually some folks from Brattonsville, which is a historic site up in the upstate of South Carolina. They came down, oh God, lady, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And when we started really doing this, more as a program, and they came down and they taught a lot of us how to do this, and then we've just been kind of passing on the skills the best we can.
Awesome.
Now, we've got the shearing.
Thanks, historic Brattonsville.
Here comes this is the part I always forget to do. While we've got the animal down, we're gonna trim hoofs, okay? Much like we trim our nails.
Oh yeah.
Okay, same idea. Get some of that dirt off, trim these up so the animal doesn't have any hoof problems. We'll probably do a little manicure and nail polish a little bit later, so, you know.
Oh, baby girl, you're doing awesome.
It's like pretty flat.
Renee. She said, back in the 80s when I helped shear the Middleton Place sheep, the shearer would set the ewe back on her tail as if she were sitting. He said that it kept them still by pressing on some nerves near their tailbone. Have you heard of this?
So sitting them up like that is called sitting them on their dock, and a lot of people still do that when they shear. I don't have the back strength for it, so I prefer not to do it that way because it's harder for me to hold them.
Gotcha. Thank you. Sitting them on their dock. That's definitely a thing some people do, Renee. Thank you.
What you'll see professional shearers, especially I'll use Australia as an example. They'll have a shearing room, okay? Animals will be placed in the pen, and the shearer himself will actually be put in a harness, all right? He'll pull the animal out of the pen, and then he'll bend on over, keeping the harnesses supporting him, especially supporting the back. And like she said, they would dock, or basically put them on their butt. And he'll do the belly first, and then literally, he's almost spinning them as he goes around. And if you ever get a chance to watch it, I mean, it's really amazing to watch.
Probably on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. And you'll see, you'll see this full animal with this full fleece on, and then suddenly in about 3 minutes, we have a naked sheep coming out. I mean, it's amazing to watch. And then once they're done with that, they just let the animal go.
Awesome.
It goes out. And you'll see here after they get the hooves done, we're going to kind of help her up. Sometimes like legs will fall asleep, been in position a little bit. We'll just get her up, make sure she's okay. Plus we'll check, make sure we haven't missed anything. Sometimes we may have the fleece still may be connected like on part of the neck or the head. We just forgot to clip it, so we just want to make sure. One thing when I was teaching people to shear, one thing I always say, you really haven't sheared until you've got one like halfway done, and then they get away from you.
And they bolt.
We've had that. We've had a couple running on the greens where it's half shorn, and
I saw that the other day.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought that she had just ripped it off herself.
no,
She got away. Oh well.
They'll get away. It'll happen sometimes.
It's all right.
Sometimes when they're so docile like this, and you kind of forget. Oh, everything's fine. You kind of, and then suddenly, boom. I often wonder if they don't plan that sometimes.
Probably. I have to say, in my 6 years of working here at Middleton Place, one thing I learned very quickly was that sheep are not stupid animals. We tend to think that they are docile and not terribly smart, and that is not at all true. These guys are clever animals.
Matter of fact, I think that's true with every animal out here.
All right. Very good.
All right, we ready to get her
All right,
up?
little girl.
All right, let's see what happens.
All right, lady.
Get up.
You got it?
Hold it right there. Hold up. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't move those. I don't want anyone to get that. Hold up. Yeah, we got a little hot. That's all right. Very fast. There you go.
Bye, Mud Sister. Nice haircut. Now it's a shower time. Every girl knows that unless you just got a perm, you always take a shower right after you get a haircut.
Let's put this up on the table.
She's just looking for the rest of the flock. Newly cut hair.
Here, we'll show you what this looks like.
Here. All right. Awesome job, ladies. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Here we go.
Beautiful.
Now, you can see here, that's where the head went. Right up in there. Okay, and we got the underside. Actually, no, that's the outside. Sorry about that. We got a turn here. There we go.
It's too cool.
And that's it. So we'll clean this up a little bit. This is pretty good. Not bad. Excellent job.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all so much. As always, let us know if you have any other questions. You can always drop them in the comments. We are monitoring them. We will make sure that we get the answers from Jeff and Hannah and Courtney and type them back to you. Make sure that you join us tomorrow for Hands-On History Thursday. We'll continue our chat about the Middletons in Russia and their household. And yeah, make sure that if you get a chance, you come out and see sheep shearing. Again, we don't have a big weekend festival about it this year, but Middleton Place is currently open to the public for outdoor activities. So as you're walking around, you may see the ladies here in the pen or in the Stableyards doing some of this shearing. So practicing your good social distancing, they might be able to answer some questions and you can see it in person. So we really appreciate you all joining us today. Thank you so much. As always, it is our mission to connect people with the past through American history and help to learn a little bit more about ourselves and each other. So thanks very much for being here. Jeff, thank you very much for the narration and explanation in history. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your craft and your sheep with us. We really appreciate it. So you can see Courtney, Hannah, and Jeff, and myself, Karen, out here any given day here at Middleton Place. We hope that you join us. So thanks very much, everybody. Share away, ask us your questions, and we'll see you right here on Facebook tomorrow at 11 a.m. All right, thanks, everybody.